I think this is what happens when you mix a fabricator with a chainsaw requirement. So you got one for the top plate and one for the rakers? Is that how this is?
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
No
that way
kidding.
I don't have to reset everything up.
And we're going to take some of these chains and bring them down to that dirty wood pile down there and see how long they last. Noodling. So what we're going to do here in this mud bath here is going to take a couple of test cuts on that log there. And one of the things I like to see is whether or not I can bore cut smoothly. That to me is kind of like the test. And so that's what this one's going to be for. We're not going to try to do cookies on that. Then I got some softwood hanging out over there. We can do cookies with smaller saws. And then I've got some little ash there, and then we can block up some of this. Boy, I'd really like to do to test these chains is noodle. So roll out some of these maple logs and noodle them, and that'll test whether or not they hold up edgewise, because that's real, you know what I'm saying? So this is Ricky. He built that really cool setup to take care of chains. And he brought some toys that he's built. These are all built by him. And I've got on my saws 3 chains that were sharpened by him. And this is a typical hand file walt, this pile of chips right here. So that's a good comparison. So we'll cut them. We'll get a little video of it. And then I think what we'll do after that is a little commentary. The first thing I'm going to do is just make a cut and then a plunge. And I want to do that on a couple of different saws and a couple of different chains. And that'll tell me really quick about how it works for me. So this one here, C83, we're going to call it RK grind. initial reaction is it actually cuts pretty good. It's not C83 stock, but interestingly enough, it cuts better when I lean on it versus letting it self-feed. So
that's probably a touch on the raker would get it to
but
bite.
for this saw, that's not a bad thing.
No, because that's a 28 on a 60 cc saw. So
yeah, this is only 60 cc's. But you did notice when I bore cut, it was okay.
Yeah, it didn't skip and
It didn't jump out at you. So this one passed the test.
Good.
Ever see that show Forged in Fire?
Yeah.
This will cut.
Yeah.
It looks like a steel chain.
Yep, that's the steel chain.
And is this the same angles?
All the same geometry.
All right. So this is, again, RC 2.0 on another smaller saw. See if I can get it started. This actually doesn't cut bad either. It feels a little more aggressive.
Yeah,
and if you watch it, was jumping a little bit in there. So your grind technique on different brand chains are going to come up with a slightly different result, is my read. But did you see how it was beginning to hop a little bit?
Yep.
But the other one didn't.
Yeah, because that one probably has a shorter raker, or taller raker than that one.
Yep. So the raker makes a difference.
Just a little bit more.
But for cutting firewood, that thing
Perfect.
there cuts good.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we can get the other one going.
That's a Carlton.
So this is a Carlton chain. Let's see if I can get the saw started. This one doesn't cut quite as good as the other ones, but I think it's starting from a chain that doesn't give you as much of an advantage.
Yeah.
So this is what it would make sense to me. You take that one right there. You see how I did the plunge cut, and you see what you feel there, because that's not bad.
When you plunge, it almost self-feeds
Yeah.
there because it's grabbing so much.
But you feel it?
What?
You felt it, right?
Yeah, it's smooth, but it
Right.
doesn't.
Try that one.
Yeah.
Be careful though, because you don't want it to kick back and hit you.
Yeah.
And there's your test. That doesn't look bad at all.
That's a Duke's chain.
Yeah.
So that's another different chain.
Yeah.
But this one I've done the rakers and done everything myself.
But that looked like it fed pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a good running saw.
Yeah.
That combination works pretty good, right?
Yeah, that.
That's a little bit of time, not a lot, but
it's
that's
still
what I
sharp.
shoot for.
But it doesn't grab, but it still pulls a nice chip. but when you want it to grab, you lean on it a little bit and it pulls right in.
Yep.
That's
put
the
it back.
goal.
I don't want to put time on it. I got to tighten the chain just a little bit. But I want you to feel that. That's what a low hour T83 feels like.
Well, I've learned a lot in a hurry.
I like that saw. That thing runs good.
Yeah, slight modification to make it run a little better, but nothing crazy.
Well, I figure we got 60cc saws there, a couple of them. That's a 70cc, right?
Yeah.
And then you got an 85 old guy. I can turn that up, by the way. We can crank that up.
You can tell it's running a little fat right now.
I like them running fat, but let's try on some softwood maybe. See what you think, because it's going to be a whole different game on the softwood.
Heavy saws cut easier. You don't have to push on them at all. You just set it there and let it cut.
You probably didn't see as much of a difference in the way the chain felt on the softwood.
Not with the smaller pieces. You don't notice it as much.
Yeah. Poor orphan over there didn't run, so we didn't get a chance to see it. That thing's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, you just push harder and it just keeps cutting faster.
Yeah, I think they got a winner on their hands.
Yeah.
On that one. Wow. Is that getting any oil? Looks like it.
Yeah.
So we're getting good oil. The chain didn't stretch.
Nope.
Start taking advantage of that horsepower.
It's got plenty of it.
Good running saw.
Oh yeah.
Now in a saw like that, I don't care about the bore cut.
No, you're not going to be doing that very often.
All right, let's see what it does. This stuff. Yeah. Spark plug died.
Definitely pulls a little better.
Oh yeah, that's making noodles.
Yeah. But it's still not grabby.
Yeah. So you know why I had that spark plug in the front of that car?
Just for that reason.
That's that reason. Kevin over at Chainsaw Repair said his died. So I went and got one, Tractor Supply, and said, okay, when it dies, we'll put a plug in there. Other than that, that thing runs great.
Yeah.
I think that chain ran good. I thought that was a very good setup for that saw.
Yeah,
So,
I think that tooth is bigger
yeah, it is.
than like a C83, so it grabs a little more wood too. But I think it clears the kerf better.
Yeah. So what did you learn today? Anything? I learned you know how to sharpen a chain.
Yeah, I'm not bad, but I got to know what kind of chain I'm sharpening.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
And it looks to me like that survived a few cookie cuts, and it survived a bunch of noodles. And I'm not sure you lost a whole lot. I mean, if you get through a whole tank of gas and you're not ticked off at it, you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
That means it's surviving. So, well, my neighbors are going to go around in circles for a while. I think we got enough for a video. I thought they ran good. thought they ran good, especially your little 350. I like that. It's going. Don't laugh at me. I'm going to try to start it. New favorite saw.
I told you, that thing's an animal.
This thing's a blast. Yeah, point out that we had to change the spark plug.
Oh yeah. It started, then it didn't. New spark plug, all better.
And now I can start it.
Yeah, for some reason it made it run better.
Here, run your blue saw on this. That's a good running saw too.
And that's a Carlton chain just like the 3120.
That runs good.
Yeah.
That works good.